Hi, welcome back to Cambridge Inside Out. I'm Judy Nathans,
And I'm Robert Winters.
and this is one of your favorite topics.
Yeah.
Well,
All right. So
yeah, give some background.
We're just talking about some of the agenda
policy
items.
order, right?
I mean, honestly, sometimes city council meetings aren't particularly inspiring, but sometimes the orders are actually touch on topics,
Yeah.
which, regardless what the councilors do, are just interesting topics.
And bring out people.
Right? So one of the topics that brought out a few people
Quite a few.
was there's a sort of an ongoing matter up at Harvard University where there was an effort to organize graduate students into a union.
Mm-hmm.
And if I remember how this worked, it was a few years ago, it was actually put to a vote and it failed. And then there were some people protest. They said, no, this wasn't fair, whatever. And it ended up getting adjudicated and they were forced to have a second vote. And then everybody sort of took sides and did their promotion. Yeah. And then this time it passed. And
well, maybe they had more people voting.
Probably, yeah. And people made different arguments as well. Mm-hmm. Whatever arguments they made in the first pass, they might have said, well, that didn't work, let's try something else, and maybe it worked better. So, but basically the organizing union entity was I always find this funny, at prestigious Harvard University, it's the United Auto Workers, so they're organizing graduate students in mathematics.
Anything they can organize.
Yeah,
There's
really.
No auto workers.
Right, exactly. So I guess they need a job too, right? Yeah. So anyway, so there was a city council order basically supporting the union and demanding collective bargaining agreements.
It was actually supported by Sumbul Siddiqui, Denise Simmons, Mayor McGovern, and Councilor Toomey.
Once upon a time, whenever the taxi cab people said we want to do something, every councilor and his uncle wanted to sign on because you really wanted to be part of the union, part of that group.
Yeah.
Same thing here. There's a lot of the political people. If it's something that sounds like supported unions, they just want to be. They want to say, "You can't get me. I'm part of the union," right? So they'll glom on.
Does MIT have anything like this?
I don't think so. I mean, the thing is all universities have. When I was a graduate student at Boston University, I actually helped organize some of the graduate students within the mathematics world there, because we just basically want to say, look, in terms of what we do for work and doing some sort of things as a group, maybe we should sort of not just be these characters who just get thrown a bone here every now and again.
So you're basically saying what they're saying.
Not really, because the thing is that the fundamental thing is that this was just basically wanting to have just to not get overworked. And make sure you had enough money to cover it. It wasn't like
But who would enforce that? Or are you just saying...
You wouldn't. There wouldn't be any enforcing agent. It would just be a way of collectively being able to sort of talk to the people and help make decisions.
Did it work?
I think, for the while, we actually organized things, and it kind of helped. But, the one thing I kind of was joking about this on Civic Journal is that being a graduate student is not really a viable career option. If you think that being a graduate student is a career, then you're doing something wrong.
It does take some people a long time to get their PhDs
we call those the
stuff.
ABDs, the all but dissertations. It's true that graduate students...
Can't you defer things if the longer you have to write your thesis and all? Can you defer paying back loans and all that?
I don't know, because I never did loans.
All right, but I'm just wondering what would be the plus of taking forever to get your... Whatever.
Honestly, I don't know that it's a choice. I think it's just that if you, there are a lot of people who, listen, I took longer than I should have in getting my degree.
What's the average time?
We used to say, you go to graduate school and then 4 years later you get your PhD or whatever, and then out you go.
4 years, I think it's longer than that now, isn't it?
Well, on average it was more like 5 and 6, but the thing, and you could argue...
In some ways it is a part career.
Right, so if you end up, because university, I'll tell you a dirty little secret about a lot of academic institutions. Not really the one that I currently work at, namely Harvard University, MIT, and also Extension School at Harvard University. But a lot of other schools, they depend on adjunct faculty who are paid crap.
That's right.
And sometimes they didn't even have any benefits at all.
Right.
Or they would work just a lot just to qualify for the benefits, even if they weren't getting much in the way of salary.
Basically, they're contract workers. They're not getting...
somebody actually bought the book. It's a book called "We'll Teach for Food," right? You know, and there's been great cartoons made about it too.
And now
you
you
know,
got online
a bunch of
courses
teachers
now.
waiting in the
Yeah.
parking lot at
Yeah.
Home Depot for somebody for the truck from the university to come down and pick up a few teachers for day work,
But
day
also,
labor.
aren't a lot of universities doing online stuff now too, which also
That's
takes
right.
away from.
Right. So the
yeah.
thing is, so they're
It's
that's the
endangered.
worst type of
Yeah.
exploitation is basically just getting rid of the employees entirely.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. But the thing is graduate students have been exploited. There's no question about
Yeah.
it. You know, and whether unionization is really the right way to do that, I don't know. I think in some places where, you know, more than half of all the teaching and teaching related matters are done by
graduates.
adjuncts or graduate
yeah.
students. And then meanwhile, the
Yeah.
tenured faculty are paid handsomely.
True.
There is a real,
Yeah.
there's a real breakdown. I mean, when I taught at Brandeis for a year and a half, the person who was the chair of the mathematics department at the time said to me, kind of embarrassingly, says, I really wish we could pay you what we really should be
Wow.
paying you. She says, you know, this is Brandeis University, you know, which is named after Justice Brandeis, and we view justice as a defining quality of our school, and it's embarrassing the fact that we
interesting.
don't actually live up to that
I
reputation.
wonder if it's changed.
I don't know if it has, but you know,
What
the
about
thing,
Wellesley? You teach
Wellesley
there.
actually was they were used some adjuncts, but the thing is, and I was an assistant professor, I was a lecturer, I played different roles. No, they were very fair. Wellesley College was very fair and thoughtful. It was a great place to work.
Women's college. What do you
Women's
say?
college, they got the justice thing down real
Yeah.
good there. They really did,
Equity,
actually.
right,
You know,
fairness.
I absolutely swear by it.
That's interesting.
But anyway, so I don't really know. I don't have a strong opinion about this unionization exactly, other than the fact that I think that it's one thing if you just want to say, listen, our goal is simply to make sure horrible exploitation isn't happening, and that people can at least sort of get by
Yeah.
during the hopefully very brief time that they're there before moving on to a real career. You know, I mean, that's really what the goal should be. And whether you have to do that with a union or not, I don't know. You know, I'll leave that to others to decide. But anyway, we brought people out, and you know, I'm sure it passed unanimously. I didn't bother to record it.
Now that I think about it, it was mostly men that came out and supported it. I don't remember any women graduate students, but I
yeah.
could be wrong. I don't know.
You know, it's actually it's a lot more complicated than some of the elected officials seem to want to understand or acknowledge. You know, which is that, you know, if you're a graduate student at a department, the department's primary obligation to you is to help you move along in your path toward your degree. You know,
Yeah.
finishing your thesis defense. Again, this is the 29th anniversary of my thesis defenses today. But that's really what they should be doing. And part of that in making you ready to be if you, for example, want to go into an academic career, to make sure you're able to teach and do things, because, you know, very few academic jobs leave you completely off the hook. So having
Very few academic jobs,
right.
period.
So the teaching experience for graduate students is part of the training. It's just as much as going to a class and learning are Lie algebras, right? You know, it's all part of the graduate education, you know, and, you know, so are graduate students being properly supported should be the real question.
Yeah.
Not so much what's your hourly wage for
Well,
doing
maybe
things.
that's part of the issue, because it seems like they're not. It seems like the wages, benefits, whatever. I don't know.
Right.
Who
But
knows?
the thing is, you have to sort of still look at it as part of a package. I mean, if for example they're basically, you're paying no tuition because you're doing it as part of, you know, should you count the value of the tuition towards your wage? If so, you're actually being variable
Didn't that come up somewhere
compensated.
recently where they wanted to? Was it Trump that did? They wanted to tax. It was when they wanted to tax.
Oh, that's right.
graduate
I think that's
students. Yeah.
right. So if you're basically there on a teaching assistant,
They were
even
gonna
a
tax
research,
your graduates.
right? What the
Right.
equivalent of wage or what
Right.
the value of that
the value
benefit
of that,
is.
and I think that didn't go anywhere. But,
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So, you know, I think it's kind of complicated.
Yeah.
You know, again, I'm a person who sort of walks both worlds of academic
Right.
and civic political.
right.
sometimes I tell you, I'm not impressed with the way elected officials understand what actually happens. I've seen one person who's now a state representative sort of descend into MIT, involve himself in a controversy at MIT, knowing nothing of the issues, but it was warm bodies that he could use to sort of promote his political career. You know, it's not a comfortable mix, really. I wish it was a better mix between academics, especially in an academic city like Cambridge, between the elected world and the academic worlds. But honestly, it's a very big disconnect. You know, we do have a city council committee on what is it? It's on university relations and economic development. But honestly, how often? When was the last time they really talked about university relations?
Yeah, it's all about vacant storefronts.
Yeah, and part of the reason is that there just aren't too many of the elected officials who are particularly well versed in talking about that, other than to say Harvard, MIT, what can you give us? You know.
Well, but also, I mean, but like Sarah Gallup from Harvard, I mean, from MIT.
Salt of the earth, one of the greatest people I know.
She comes to a lot of things.
She does.
So,
she does.
She's.
Yeah.
I think the councils respect the people.
No, I hope they would, because honestly,
Yeah.
some of the people that the universities are putting up are really great people.
Yeah.
You know, and with the hope that they will interact well with city government.
Right.
And there have been some good strategic partnerships over the years.
Yep.
Between the folks at MIT as well as from the folks at Harvard.
Yeah.
MIT especially, quite honestly.
I mean, we get a lot from having these universities in the city, and the trade-off is that if you look at the statistics, yeah, we have more renters than we have homeowners because people come and go, and it's a rental community, really.
That's true.
And
you know, and many a property owner who had a rental unit, myself included, have certainly benefited by having students in the city who needed a place to live. So it's a partnership that runs really, really deep. You know.
Although, I mean, you'd have certain people in the city that don't want to see students crammed into these apartments.
You know,
they want families, but you know what? The landlord isn't necessarily going to rent out to a family.
Right. The argument has
they
been
gotta
made.
live somewhere.
Right.
And graduate housing, by the way, at least MIT, I've checked, is not that cheap necessarily.
It's not that cheap, right?
I think the family ones are good, but like single people, it's about as much as you pay for a room in a private.
That's right. That's right. So one of the points that have been made in various municipal election years is they say, oh, Harvard and MIT should be housing more of their students, right?
Right.
I said, well, maybe that's true, but you know, I've made that point many times over that when I was a graduate student, the last thing I wanted to do was live in university housing.
Yeah, right.
And that the equilibrium has changed in recent years just because the cost of housing is so much higher that in fact you might say, well, boy, I wish there was some housing at the university because I can't find a place around Cambridge or Somerville or something that's reasonably close.
It seems like MIT has built a lot of housing. Maybe not graduate, but it seems like they have a lot of
I
undergraduate.
think that with every passing year and every new building that goes up, the universities are somewhat stepping up to the plate.
Yeah.
So maybe they should be doing more. I personally think they should do a little bit more. But for elected officials to somehow mandate that they should be housing all of their students, when in fact many of the students don't want that.
Are older too, even if
They're
they don't
older.
have families. They're older. They're not. They want
Right.
to be private.
And if they have families, they may not want to live in university housing. They might want to find a condo or whatever. And
Well, if they can afford it, but
If they can
actually,
afford it.
some of the
And some of them can.
universities is a good deal. I looked at some of the that
Right.
MIT has. Actually, it's pretty.
yeah, and
reasonable.
there are a lot of international students who are coming
Right.
to go to school at Harvard and MIT who actually have financial support that includes enough money to actually
I've
cover
had
some of
them
the
for
housing
20
costs.
years. I've had
Yeah.
not Airbnb, long
That's
term,
right.
all
Right.
semester. Wonderful people.
Yeah.
MIT were the best because they never were there.
Yeah.
They're always studying in the labs.
That's really true,
Yeah.
actually. I'll tell you a funny thing one time because I had a thesis advisor when I was a graduate student years ago. And there were certain books I had, and I was so one day I was over at the student center at MIT, and it was kind of well known that there were a lot of people who basically sort of lived there,
Really?
right? You know, and they
weren't
may have
students?
they were students,
Oh.
but there were a lot of Asian students who came over there. They didn't want anything. They may have had an apartment somewhere, or
But they didn't want it was too
but
far
they
away. Or
no,
maybe,
they just
yeah.
they would often just sleep there. It was open 24 hours.
That's true. Yeah.
So one time I'm looking there and there's one of these little study corrals, and I'm looking at this and I look at it. Somebody's got all their books there, and
Oh
they
my
got
goodness.
laundry under the
Oh my
table.
goodness.
And I looked at the books and I said, got it. I said, my God, is this me?
Oh, that's too
I mean,
funny.
for this one brief moment, I had this fantasy that I
Like
had
that.
this, that I would sleepwalk,
Walter
and
University.
I would get up at night, and I
Yeah.
would wander down there, and then I
That's
had this
too
other
funny.
life down
Yeah.
at MIT, and then I said, no, I know that's not true.
That's funny.
But you know, that was a real thing, you know. Anyway, so the topic
So that
was
was
about
the-
the
yeah.
graduate student union. You know, I just hope that the universities and their students, graduate students in particular,
come to
and their
some-
postdocs can find a nice, good equilibrium. Union or no union, just come on, everybody, just let's do right.
Well, do
That's all.
something, because it was
Yeah, and
bad,
take
yeah.
care of your, you know, not so much Harvard and MIT, but other universities.
Yeah.
Think about your adjuncts, for God's sake, you know?
Yeah.
Honestly, that's one of the most exploited groups. And not just because I was one, you know, but
Well, because they don't want to give tenure. I mean, you have to
Right.
get more, and then it's hard to get it, right? So it's
well, the thing
very-
is the more they turn tenure into this sort of be-all, end-all,
Yeah.
then the less they would willing to give it, or even to extend for, you know, there's other ways of having contract employees where even if you're not tenure or tenure track, you could continue to work for year after year as long as you do a good job.
yeah,
And there's some places where they didn't want, because the faculty actually forbade the practice because they didn't want the university to just keep stringing people along. They said you either have to tenure them or tell them to go find a job elsewhere,
huh?
which I think was not great. But that's the
But
that's the
but don't
practice
some of these
people did.
tenured faculty rely on graduate students to do their work?
Typically, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So
absolutely
it's
true.
sort of a
It's
system that sort of
right. It's a
yeah.
partnership, and honestly,
Well,
just
partnership. That's I wouldn't call it a partnership.
well, it is a bit of
because
a
I think
partnership
they,
in that.
they pick them up at the airport. I mean, I don't know. I think they can be.
But the graduate students need the faculty.
Yes,
And
it's
the
a
faculty need the
symbiotic kind
graduate
of thing,
students,
right?
so,
But one
you
is
know,
getting very handsomely paid. I
One is
guess
being
it all
well paid, and
depends
the other
on
one is not. But then
professor.
hopefully, if you
Yes,
give them
have
a
a
leg
good
up,
relationship. Yeah.
then they go into a real career where, in fact, they hopefully will do
Right.
well, and thanks to the support of their faculty sponsor.
Yeah,
you know,
that's good.
So
You're right.
so that's how it should ideally work.
All right. So what else came up there?
Well,
Last
one of the things, I'll just mention this one here. There was a city council order having to do with workforce development. I think it
Oh,
was
yeah.
Sumbul Siddiqui maybe
Yeah.
was the one who was primarily
Well,
pushing it,
it's-
but I'm
yeah.
not 100% sure. And the thing I'd say about that is,
Yeah.
again, not to
Siddiqui,
sound
Mallon, Devereaux, and Simmons, all the
Right.
women.
right. So now, again, I think I've been making myself awfully clear of late that I'm really disappointed in the whole
Oh,
Envision
Envision,
Cambridge
yeah.
process. I think it was a 3-year waste of time,
Yeah,
money, and effort
Oh, yeah.
that exploited a lot of people's goodwill and basically just, you know, people just did what they want. And this is not meant to be criticism for the UTL consultants, who I think were really quite good. It's just that ultimately they kind of got phased out somewhere halfway through, and then city staff took over. But anyway, one of the recommendations,
From
and it was
the Envision Cambridge Economy Working Group.
yeah, and the thing is, but it was embraced by most everybody.
Yeah.
It's really just, it's common sense, and it predates Envision completely. But I'm glad it got emphasized, was the fact that there are a lot of people who grow up in Cambridge
Right.
whose prospects, not only for housing,
Yeah.
but for gainful employment and a good
Yeah.
future, are limited.
Yeah.
And until we find a way of solving that problem,
Yeah.
we have a big problem. And if nothing comes out of Envision Cambridge other than possibly maybe a way of getting that goal a little closer to reality, then maybe I'll say there was something good that came of it.
But I thought they had something like that. I thought
You know,
isn't there like a workforce?
There was an Office of
Department or
Workforce
something?
Development.
Yeah. So aren't they
You know, we used to
bringing
do
employers
this all.
together and
They do it, you know, and I give a lot of credit to the people over the Human Services Department of Human Services programs, because
well, this says this is going to go back to the Human Services and Veterans Committee on this matter.
Yeah.
So, but
no,
not to
it
economic.
will.
Yeah.
So I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to do a little bit more partnership with the
Yeah.
entities like, you know, some of the biotech companies, some
Right.
of the Kendall Square,
Right.
you know,
I
the
thought
brain
the whole
trusts.
STEM thing. I thought
the
that
universities.
was going on.
You know, I'm all for, you know, STEM, STEAM.
Yeah.
You know, I teach
Yeah, that came
mathematics,
up
right?
too,
There's nothing I want more than to see mathematical proficiency and, you know, engineering and science proficiency just sweep across the city.
Right.
You know, I want every kid who grows up here to kind of appreciate it, to excel in it. That's my goal. I don't know
Yeah.
if it'll ever be realized, but the thing is, that would be my goal. And so people love to talk about STEM and STEAM. There's another initiative was actually
Right,
on the
right.
actually it's from the manager's office about an
It's in the
expenditure
library, yeah.
for some sort of makerspace
Hive, yeah.
STEAM something initiative. It's
Yeah.
kind of hard to figure out exactly what it'll be.
Creativity
hosted-
Zone, the Hive at the
Right,
Cambridge Public
at the
Library.
Cambridge Library. I said, I hope it's just not one of those initiatives where in the end there's some broken down 3D printer
Yeah,
that somebody says, oh yeah, you can do that to do that. No, I want to see something that's sort
Yeah.
of real and exciting, and I want it also
Yeah.
to descend into the schools.
right.
And for God's sake, I want to see students learning and doing.
But what about, who brought up
Yeah.
that we don't teach electrical and plumbing and those kind of, that we kind of
I
farmed
think
it
it was
out to
Tim
Minuteman a
Toomey
while
was
ago?
running
and
out. There was a time when
Also Zondervan brought
so
that up
now
too.
it's it was used to be Ringe Tech and Cambridge Highland,
Right,
right?
and then that, they got
And
rid
that
of
became
that,
Cambridge Ringe and Latin School.
and then they sent them out,
Right, and
paid
there-
to go to vocational.
There was a time
Minuteman.
they were
Yeah.
basically contracting out the sort of trade stuff to Minuteman Academy,
Yeah.
which is way the hell out there.
Okay, well, a lot of kids went though, because
A lot
they
of
had,
kids went.
they had cooking, they had everything.
No, and
Yeah.
we used to. I think they still actually do auto work across the street from the library.
Yeah, there is
In
that
the
done.
Gus Solomon's building. Gus Solomon's building with
Yeah.
an S, even though the sign doesn't have the S, which is very
But there's, the
disrespectful.
trades really need to be, we need to bring, I mean,
You know,
they're good paying jobs and, you're
And I
always
think
gonna need a plumber.
it was
as you
Counselor
know.
Toomey, at least, maybe others pointed out
Yeah,
at the council
they
meeting
did.
last night that in fact it was the trades actually is one of the few things you could point to where you can potentially make a good income.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of demand, all
Absolutely.
those gentrifiers that have been flooding into the
Yeah.
greater metropolitan area.
You're always
wanna-
gonna need
They
electrical
want to
work.
put in those
You're
granite
gonna need,
countertops. and,
plumbing,
Yeah.
you're gonna need,
and
you know,
this is a way of bringing in some balance, addressing
Yeah.
income inequality
Right.
issues and whatever. I mean, I think it was absurd that they kind of phased out a lot of these things at the
Yeah.
high school for a while. I don't know. Thankfully, I think it was
I
when
think some
Anthony.
has been brought back because I think they didn't wanna keep sending money and kids.
I think
to-
they also
yeah.
just finally realized they made
Yeah.
a mistake.
Yeah.
And
Like welding, there was,
Right.
that's a.
So yeah, I want a lot of college-bound kids, but I also would love to see a
Well,
really
there's no,
good number
you
get
can
really
also
serious
have
trades.
education in, I mean, isn't that what community
absolutely.
colleges do? They have, they also, you have
know,
education, you learn how to write
it's-
and read and all that stuff.
Listen, even kids who go
Yeah.
to college on a basketball scholarship still
Yes.
have to take math classes,
Yeah,
right?
well,
You
that's a
get a
whole
college
other thing.
education,
yeah, well, some of them.
Some of
The
them.
one
Well,
and dones.
but right.
That was
it's
a
true.
great game last night, though. You probably didn't watch it.
Oh, this was at the
The
NC.
final, well, both the women and the men. See, I left
Yeah.
this early because I wanted to see the second half of the women's final.
Right.
So I went next door to see it. But,
Yeah.
No, it was great. They were both very exciting.
So anyway, bottom line is that so build a space within the library that old young adults, adolescents, little
If
kids
they have
even.
the right people, it's $1 million.
Yeah.
It's quite a
You know,
bit of
it's-
money.
The one
Yeah.
thing that's always a problem I've always had is when there is some sort of initiative where there's money attached, is that
Mm.
it just becomes a job for somebody, and there's not nearly as much attention paid on the actual quality
Well, I
of the
think
program.
this is more than just a job because it's $1 million.
Yeah. No.
A $250,000. Yeah.
No, it's there's great potential. I hope some
I
great
wonder
things
where
come
in
of
the
it.
library it's going to be.
I don't know,
Be interesting.
but I hope something great comes of it. So, but it's amazing how many times I hear people talk about how much they believe in STEM and STEAM, but it's almost becomes just a shallow
Yep.
echo.
Well, STEAM is arts and math, which
Right,
is interesting because a lot of people just say STEM, which leaves out the arts.
Right. Well, I
This
think
says STEAM.
well, it was STEM before, and then they
And now
threw
they've
in
added,
the
yeah.
A, right?
Yeah.
But to be perfectly honest, I don't care if you believe in STEM. I don't care if you believe in STEAM. The only thing I care about is to make sure that every kid growing
Yeah.
up in a city actually gets exposed to these
Yeah.
things and gets excited, and that something actually comes of
Yeah.
it. Whether you love it or not is unimportant. It's just whether the kids can access it. And creating a program doesn't necessarily mean kids come to it.
Well,
You know?
it's also at the library, so maybe it's geared towards younger kids too, which I think you have to start younger too.
Listen,
Yeah.
we're-
That's who goes
if
to
it
the
weren't
library.
for when I was 5 or 6 years old and they were doing the Mercury program and and putting rocket ships in orbit. Do you know how many people became math and science people
'cause they saw
just
it.
because of the fact that they were rocket ships going
Yeah,
up?
the first man. Yeah, no, it's
You
true.
know, that created this boom of people who were interested in
Yep.
math, science, and later on engineering, really because of rocket ships, you know? So yeah, it appealed to children, and it was great, you know?
Yep.
Honestly, every kid who loves to play with dinosaurs is a potential
Yep.
paleontologist, right?
When we think about it, it was our government and our lead, like John F. Kennedy. Don't ask what you can do for your country, or whatever. You know that.
But he really strongly encouraged,
Yeah.
math, science. It was, as well as physical fitness with vigor,
Yeah.
as I remember him talking.
And what do we have now? What
We
does
have
he
people
encourage?
walking around with video games.
No,
And,
no, I'm talking about who's in the White House now. We don't have a good example of
We don't, but
someone that
but
encourages people to be their best.
Right.
Really? I mean, it's just it's a shame.
well, let's
Yeah,
just hope that his
Oh,
successor
please.
is an inspiring
Shame
person.
on us, big time, if
Yeah.
that man gets in again.
Right. My biggest fear is we will go from Trump to the anti-Trump,
Like
who will be just as
Beto
intolerable.
O'Rourke? No.
I don't
Do
know.
you
No,
know
he-
the
I
people
don't
that
know
are
enough about
supporting
him.
him?
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, young people. I don't get it. He's like
People-
he's
you
another
know-
showman.
But the thing is, same with this guy who is the mayor guy.
Well, he's actually
Is it
interesting.
Buttigieg or something?
I've heard him speak.
Right. So the thing is,
He
what
has intelligence.
as we go national now, right?
Yeah, right.
My perception is that basically there are a lot of people who are dissatisfied with what we have now,
Yeah.
who are just reaching around looking for something
Yeah.
to believe in,
Well,
something
also
to
beyond
find
the
interesting.
standard senators.
Yeah.
Like, we've got enough senators running.
Yeah, I think.
Poor Elizabeth is sort of she's the lowest in the polls.
Yeah.
3%.
Well, I guess it doesn't surprise me.
Well, it's also all the women are down below.
Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me.
Right.
Welcome
But,
to the United States.
I think for a little while, maybe much of this calendar year, it'll still be
Oh.
people just searching around for something to believe in,
Oh, God.
and it may take a while.
Yeah.
So, I don't believe in any of them yet.
Yeah.
So-
I'm wait and see.
All right.
All right.
Anyway,
so-
we'll see you
probably
one
take-
of these weeks. We
Yeah,
may take off next week, maybe
'cause
not.
it
We'll
is a
see.
holiday.
Yeah. So,
And
anyway, see you
see you
soon
then.
on Cambridge Inside
bye.
Out.